back to the show. This is The Law Show on CL 650.
Back in the classroom, open your books. Gee, but the teacher don't know how mean she looks.
Hey, and welcome back to The Law Show. I'm Zach Spencer on CL 650. Today we're focusing on school trips. In studio, Joe Murphy, QC lawyer at Murphy Battista, and Jeff Nieuwenburg, an attorney also at Murphy Battista, downtown Vancouver, and Kelowna. I guess you have a lot of people wanting to access your skills and expertise, but don't want to have to travel into the city, right?
Yeah, we have, Zach, clients all over the province. We have clients outside BC. We have clients outside Canada. But we found there was a lot of them in the eastern half of BC that would be better served by us having an office in Kelowna so that they could, access that more easily. So
does it give you an excuse to have a house in Kelowna for the summer? Or is that how it works?
I haven't thought about that, but that sounds wonderful.
Yeah, hanging out on the lake.
Kelowna is the nicest place in the world in the summer.
It sure is. Absolutely. Now, Jeff, we're talking about, schools, kids going on school trips. Now, obviously, these are elementary and high school children. What happens when your child goes to university? The activities that they have at the school, whether it's in extracurricular activities in the gym or the pool, or going on trips with classes and going on excursions. What responsibility does the school have to look after a university student? And obviously, they're adults at this point. They're going into these things freely. What are the legal ramifications around that?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it changes when kids reach the age of majority, right? When they're, which in BC's 19. If your kids go off to some other provinces, then like in Alberta, it's 18. Then the responsibilities of the school change a little bit because obviously they're seen as adults and they're expected to be more alert to the sort of risks that exist there. That doesn't mean that the university doesn't have responsibility to that they can encourage extremely risky activities and that sort of thing. But they're not seen to be stepping into that role of the parent in the way that
an elementary or high school student. Yeah. So have you had any situations where you have somebody who is over 19 who's been away at school and these things? Because that's when you get into more advanced trips. Maybe they're going to Europe for a semester, these sorts of things.
Yeah. The answer, Zach, is no. We haven't had any claims involving a university student who goes on a trip. But I went to UBC, albeit many years ago, for 7 years. And I don't remember over those 7 years having a single trip where they said, okay, class, we're going to go here today or we're going to go there for next week. I just remember those ending. There are some programs at university where they say this summer we're offering a 10-week program and you get to go to England or Europe.
Yeah. Or say you're a geologist, you're out in the field doing things, right?
Yeah, as long as, the law says that a person has to be reasonable. You have to be reasonably careful. Nothing is perfectly safe. There's always risks involved. We can walk across the street after taping the show, and I could get run over by a truck. That happens. But it's what's reasonable, and it's really the care that must be taken is a function of how risky the activity is. So, again, when you get into school kids, if you have an activity that takes these kids in or anywhere near water, the risks go way up.
Yeah, so we'll get back to the elementary and high school children, and the notice comes in for the school trip. What are the red flags? What kind of activities would you like to see curtailed if your child is going on a school trip?
I'm not saying curtail them. I'm saying understand what the risk is. Yeah. And then, of course, you say, okay, if we've got a risk here, if I've got a child, let's say I've got a grade 4 child who doesn't swim, and this is a trip to some lake, Cultus Lake, I'm going to be really concerned because I know if these kids get to Cultus Lake and go in swimming, my kid is going to think, well, all my friends are in there. I'm going to go too. So I would have a real problem with that. But it's a matter of understanding what the risks are, so you can make a decision whether you want to send your kid, and you can make the choice of what you're going to say to your kid about what they can and cannot do, and understand the supervision. But the supervision with some trips, like a ski trip, turns out to be teachers who are on the mountain, but generally not with any of the kids.
Mm-hmm. That depends on the age, too. I know elementary grades they have a ski day once a week. They have like a ski club, and they go up to the, sure enough, okay, well, this is a question for you. So it's after school, right? And you have a ski club, and they pile on the bus at 3 o'clock, and they go up to one of the local mountains here and do sort of a late afternoon, early evening ski, and then they come back, and the parents pick them up at the school out of the bus. Does that change because it's an extracurricular activity in the eyes of the law?
I think it puts less responsibility on the school and more responsibility on the parents, but the school is still running it. If they're operating this as part of the school system, then they've got to make sure that it's planned and supervised such that the risks to the kids are minimized. Or if there's a huge risk, it's simply avoided.
Well, one of the advantages to having, a spouse that stays at home, like my wife stays at home, is that when these things came up, especially when they were little and they didn't want to be away from mom for the whole day in grade 2 and 3, what have you, that she would go with. And that's not a bad advice. If it's a risky behavior and it's a one-day trip and you can afford to take a day off of work to go with them, is that good advice? That's
generally good advice because the parent is going to have sort of an antenna up all the time with little kids about risks. We're always worried when our kids are really little that we've got to watch them carefully because they just don't know enough to avoid risks. So that's an excellent idea generally. Now,
is there usually are there more accidents with younger grades or older grades? Does it go up with the older they get, the more risks they take, the more boisterous they become?
My experience generally is that it's the older kids that are doing activities that pose greater risks. Going to a lake for a day swimming, going up to a mountain for a day of skiing, that's not something little kids will do. Going rock climbing and camping, I think it starts maybe grade 6, 7, 8. Mm-hmm. So the little kids generally don't have that, but there's still things that are risks to little kids, but usually the risks are much less in terms of if something bad happens, it's going to be less severe than these kids who are doing, the adult activities.
But no parent wants to say no to their kid when the rest of the class is going. So what's your advice? Do you contact the teacher? Do you contact the principal? Do you have to go to the top? What should the parent do if there's a risky activity like swimming, what have you, that you maybe don't feel comfortable with? What are the steps that you should take?
Well, I think, example, grade 3 is going to the pool for a day. If my child's not a competent swimmer, I'm going to say to the school, my child is not a safe swimmer. What are you going to do to make this trip safe for him or her? Schools want to make the trip safe. They don't want to see any child hurt. This is a real disaster for the child, for the parents, and for the school and the teachers. These teachers are there to take care of the kids and to teach them, not to deal with injuries. So these things are something that nobody wants to see happen. And the parent can work with the school, with the teachers to say, okay, example, my kid's not a safe swimmer. What's going to happen on this trip if he goes?
And then you get the whole, there's cutbacks, there's not enough people to supervise, and that's where parents come in, right?
Well, except if I'm told there's going to be a parent for every 5 kids, my question would be, okay, and what supervision are they going to provide? A parent just being there on the side of a school on a cell phone, texting, isn't going to provide the protection that I'm going to say. I wouldn't send that child who doesn't swim. I wouldn't send them to the pool on their own. Mm-hmm. So if I'm going to send them to the pool on a school trip, I'm going to want to know, okay, who's supervising? What's the supervision going to be? How many supervisors do you have? Just a warm body of a parent sitting beside the pool doesn't provide the supervision that's needed, because if something bad happens, the results can be so terrible. We're not talking about a scrape or broken wrist. You're talking about something far worse.
Yeah, I think you need the voice of reason there, right? These sorts of trips, obviously kids get excited. They get to it's a day they're not in school, right?
Yeah.
So they're excited.
They're free.
They're not, and kids aren't always. We hope they're not always thinking about risks and dangers and all that sort of stuff, and they're able to have fun. But it's important that there's supervision there, and that the person that's there is going to be the voice of reason and is going to make, it doesn't help if there's somebody in the snowboard park and the adult there is doing the flips off the jumps as well.
Show them how to do it.
Yeah.
That's probably an excellent way to end off our conversation. It's been a fantastic conversation, really enlightening for parents and grandparents who are maybe the guardians of children that are going to school and all want to take part in these events. We've been focusing on school trips. Joe Murphy, QC at Murphy Battista, and Jeff Nieuwenburg, also at Murphy Battista in downtown Vancouver and Kelowna. And thanks very much, gentlemen. We'll have you back again. It's The Law Show. I'm Zach Spencer. Thanks for listening here on CL 650.